All right, how's it going, my magnificent sons of bitches on Twitter and on YouTube? As I don't know if my Facebook is still attached to this thing or not, but yeah, we've got an NFL draft video, and let me tell you something right now: that the only opinions that matter. It doesn't matter if it's on ESPN. It doesn't matter if it's on the NFL Network. It doesn't matter if it's on Twitter or YouTube, if it's chat sports, or if it's you know those urinating tree, or if it's Tom Grossi. It really doesn't matter. It only matters. The opinions that only matter are just mine and Big Kev's. So I'm going to introduce. You can go ahead and sub to the man, Big Kev. The link is in the description. How's it going, Big Kev?
It's going
Going.
beautifully.
So yeah, I figured we would do one of these draft videos, and I wanted to go ahead and get it started before the draft actually started because we're kind of the most interesting draft that I've seen in years, probably, man. Uh, this draft is absolutely fucking stacked with the defense is pretty nice, but the fucking offense in this draft is absolutely, dude. Um, so I figured we would go through like some of our favorites coming out right now
Yeah.
before before they started. Of course, I'll be going over New England and Dallas, what I think they should do, and I'm sure Big Kev is going to go over the
Titans.
Tennessee Titans. And if Steven Rose comes in, he'll probably want to go ahead and chime in on the Houston Texans. I just sent him the link at the last minute, so it's not for certain that he's going to come in. But yeah, Big Kev, we'll go ahead and start with your Titans. What do you guys think you should do in the draft before the draft gets started right now for everybody? Because I know that all the Titan GMs and the Titan, they listen to you, and so you carry a lot of weight in the Titan organization. So, what do you think they should do in this round of the draft? Because you got a pretty decent pick this year.
Well, what they need to do is they address some situations in free agency. I hear that they're still going to address a little bit more in free agency once the draft is over. But if you are going with Will Levis as your future, you already have a really good guard from last year in Peter Starosky. You have a very, very stacked tackle offensive lineman in this draft. Everybody's been putting them next to Joe Alt from Notre Dame. But I look at it like this. If the Titans have an opportunity, because they got rid of a third round, I think they got rid of a third or fourth round pick for Kansas City to get Snead. But if they have the opportunity to trade down to get more draft capital, I think they can, because this draft, as you were saying earlier, is stacked to the bone. If they lose out on Joe Alt, I don't think that's going to hurt them. But I will say that I think what they need to do is, if you're dead set on Joe Alt being the guy in the seventh pick, then you need to have him as that left tackle for the Titans for 10, 15 years to come, playing next to Peter Starosky. Because the Titan quarterbacks took a lot of hit last year. They took a lot of hit the year before. Will Levis needs to have more time to throw the football now that they got Calvin Ridley with DeAndre Hopkins. They could go for another receiver, and I know Malik Neighbors has been noticed on there. I've heard some people say Brock Bowers from Georgia.
I also heard Roman Aduma, that dude, Roman Aduma. I can't say his freaking name, but yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. There's been those guys named on there. I think with the Titans, they need to. I personally would draft Joe Alt. That's just me. But I also know you need more picks in this draft, so you kind of need to look at it a little more you got a lot of more pieces. You still need another middle linebacker. You still need another receiver. You still need to get another edge rusher in there because you lost D'Amico Autry to Houston. So the safe bet would be Joe Alt, but honestly, I think the Titans might trade down to get some more capital.
Yeah, that's the same thing that I'm going to sit there and say about the Patriots, man, because the Patriots are at number 3. Now, here is the conundrum, right? We're pretty sure that Caleb Williams and Drake May are going to probably go 1 and 2. With that being said, you know, you've got Jaden Daniels and you've got which I'm gonna say that's probably gonna be the 3rd pick. That's what ESPN wants everybody to pick. Now, as far as like my quarterback draft board, and it looks like Big Kev's internet may be slow. Okay, there he's back. But like the internet gurus, the experts, same ones that have been saying that, Justin Fields is, the goods and Bryce Young is the goods, have went on board and they've put it on their resume. Caleb Williams is the goods. Now, as far as I'm concerned, J.J. McCarthy is the best quarterback in this draft. And that's bar none. He's, led that team. He's led the Michigan squad to the playoffs 3 years running. He's been highly competitive. His record speaks for itself. And when you look at him on the field, I think he's this year's C.J. Stroud. He's probably the most NFL-ready quarterback coming into this draft. And the second quarterback that I have on my board personally is Jaden Daniels. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Aaron Rodgers. And then Bo Nix, Mike Penix. Then I would probably go Drake May, maybe, and then Caleb Williams. I don't really like Caleb Williams' game. Drake May is kind of nah. So if you're the New England Patriots, Big Kev, all right, now I'll kick this to you. And you have that 3rd pick. You know that the Bears are going to take Caleb Williams. They're going all in. Right. You know that 9 out of 10 times that the Washington Redskins are going to go Drake May. I think that's the general consensus. Now, I'm not saying that the Washington Redskins, Commanders, whatever the fuck they want to call themselves, can't throw a monkey wrench and screw everything up. They certainly can. But for right now, for all extensive purposes, we'll just go ahead theoretically and say that it goes chalk and they go Drake May. Well, now you got, to me, the number 1 and number 2 quarterbacks in this draft. If you're New England at number 3, man, just like you said, you would trade back to get draft capital. The offensive line for New England is absolute trash right now. You know what I'm saying? They got pieces there, but they're short-staffed, and they definitely need a lot more. They had Cole Strange a couple of years ago, and so we know that the pieces are set up there for New England to get really good like Houston did last year. Because their wide receivers are not that bad. Bourne, and you still got Tyquan Thornton. You got Kayshon Boutte just a couple of years ago. You have some pieces there to work with that wide receiver, so you don't have to reach for a Marvin Harrison. That doesn't make any sense. So, Minnesota wants to trade up. I keep hearing J.J. McCarthy. That's what I keep hearing. Now, like I said, J.J. McCarthy on the ESPN draft boards for the longest has been the 4th, with Jaden Daniels being the 3rd. So it doesn't, like I said, to me personally, it's 1 and 2. Jaden Daniels, I think that at the floor for J.J. McCarthy is Kirk Cousins, and his ceiling is like Tom Brady. And I think that the ceiling for Jaden Daniels is Aaron Rodgers. So if it's either going to be a coin flip between Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers that you're going to get, could you trade back to number 11? You need offensive line help, and get that 11 and 23rd pick in the 1st round because you already got the 34th pick. And would you rather take your guy at number 3, or would you go ahead, roll the dice, and see which guy, it may be J.J. McCarthy,
which we know the last Michigan quarterback did pretty well for you in New England, or you're going to get Jaden Daniels, which, like I said, he's like my Aaron Rodgers in this draft. That's kind of who he reminds me of a little bit. Do you trade back to number 11 and go ahead and roll the dice? Because I don't see like any of these other teams trading up any higher than they're at. I don't see them jumping. It would only be the only other team I could see is Denver, maybe. The Raiders, and like I said, you still got Penix out there as well. So, what do you do if you're New England?
Well, if you're New England, I know that the ceiling's there with some really good young quarterbacks. I would roll the dice because you need help in two different areas, and like you said, they already have a pretty good little receiving core. So getting Marvin Harrison or Malik Neighbors really, to me, would be the right way to go for New England. You want to build that offensive line, and then you want to slide in a quarterback, but you have to pray that if, like, say for example, they trade with Minnesota or they trade with Denver. Now what you're doing is you have to pray to God that if you want J.J. McCarthy, he's going to be there when you make that trade, because there could be somebody else that could come in the wings, trade up, and steal him, which has been known to happen in the NFL draft. We all know this. So you have to kind of – now, if New England could trade down, and I would say I would draft one of those linemen, maybe that guy from Alabama, maybe the guy from Penn State, or, have a really good, strong left tackle there or right tackle. So now if you re-signed your right tackle during the offseason, now you have a guy to piece with that. So now what you got to do then is you just have to pray that the quarterback that you want is still there. But let it be known, New England did draft a quarterback in the 6th round named Tom Brady, and it worked out perfectly. So look at the 49ers. They drafted Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy was like a 3rd or 4th rounder. So do you really need a quarterback in the 1st round? You don't always need one in the 1st round.
Well, I'll tell you this, right? This would be the best case scenario for New England. New England goes ahead, trades back. Minnesota falls in love with Jaden Daniels. You've got LSU products right there in Minnesota right now. And they're like, he's kind of like an Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers used to be the death of us. So it's kind of hard to pick up on, let go of this Aaron Rodgers like prototype in Jaden Daniels, especially if he falls to us, and if we can move up to 3 to get him, if New England is willing to trade back with us. J.J. McCarthy slips back to number 11. New England picks him up just like that. All of a sudden, now you've got your quarterback of the future. Let's say you get the 23rd pick for that, you know what I'm saying? Because Minnesota's got 2 first-rounders. They're looking to move up to get a quarterback. So you get their 23rd pick. All of a sudden, Armarius Mims from Georgia is there, that 6'7" tackle that you're probably going to have to play at right tackle until he gets comfortable enough to put him at left tackle. But everybody agrees that he's essentially Joe Alt. He just doesn't have the experience that Joe Alt has. But he's going to be a one of those like Nate Solders or Joe Thomas tackles that's going to be a mainstay for years to come. Well, then you got the 34th pick. Let's say Graham Barton from Duke is on the board. Then you can go ahead and draft Graham Barton, that guard out of Duke. Guess what? You have now put up an offensive line in front of J.J. McCarthy. And, when you look at the draft and you look at these wide receivers, you got Roma Duzier, you've got Malik Neighbors, and then you got Marvin Harrison's, and those seem to be the sexiest pick as far as like ESPN's concerned. But you also got Adonde Mitchell. You've got Xavier Worthy. He just broke the record at the combine. You got Tez Walker. You've got Troy Franklin out of Oregon. You got my personal favorite, and it's a guy I told you that reminds me of Michael Irvin, and that's Keon Coleman. And then you've got his side that kind of is like a Brandon Marshall type of wide receiver. Um, I think I would prefer Keon Coleman, who a lot of these sports guys have going into the fourth round with a third round pick. Well, guess what? You've already got your receiving core. There's your true X, your possession wide receiver. And I think that McCarthy, I think you set up everything for McCarthy, and you could just go ahead and roll on next year because that defense is already kind of nasty. There's a guy that we should really talk about and what your thoughts are, and that's Tavondre Sweat is probably going to end up falling, man. Whenever I look at these YouTubers, a lot of these guys are passing on him in the third and fourth round. Now I'm like, the dude is kind of like this generation's Vince Wilfork. Somebody's going to get a steal with that kid, man. Are you still there? Can you hear me?
One thing that people don't want to understand is we like to have underdogs and teams that you wouldn't think get up there in the draft and from their place. Don't be surprised if somehow Cincinnati, because you know how T. Higgins is wanting to trade. Say, for example, Cincinnati trades T. Higgins to the Giants or the Chargers and then takes their pick and drafts Malik Neighbors. There's things like that can definitely happen in this draft. I think New England, I mean, while it's safe to do what they're doing to get more draft capital, if you trade with Minnesota and then you have Minnesota's pick, if JJ McCarthy is still there, you take JJ McCarthy. There's no ins buts about it, because if you don't, someone like Denver or someone like that's going to come up and take him. So you want to have that established. And another receiver that you want to look at in the later rounds is the son of one of the best wide receivers of all time, Brendan Rice. Jerry Rice's son. A lot of people are kind of sleeping on him, and I'm like, the kid he's got the mechanics of his dad. Now, will he be as good as his dad? I don't know. But Coleman is definitely a guy you definitely want to look at as a receiver, too. And there's like two different guys there that you can easily pick up another receiver in the later rounds. But I think New England should try to make that trade. If Minnesota comes knocking, and for example, let's say the Commanders decides to not take May, they decide to take Daniels. Then May is there. Now New England can sit there and not want to take May, but honestly, as much as I hate to say this, I think McCarthy's a better quarterback than May is.
Yeah, and like I said, his resume proves it.
There was rumors. I don't know if you heard this rumors, Prodigal Hill, but there was rumors that the Chargers were thinking about the idea of trading Justin Herbert to Minnesota, them taking that pick and them taking JJ McCarthy. Because JJ McCarthy played with
Jim Harbaugh.
Harbaugh. So yeah. So I'm sitting there thinking, don't be surprised if something like that gets thrown in the mix or something like that. While Justin Herbert does have in his contract, there's no trade clause, but they took away a lot of his weapons. So you're kind of like, if you put Justin Herbert in Minnesota, he's got Justin Jefferson there. So there's just some things that you need to look out for, I guess, in certain situations. Like last year, for example, everybody in Nashville thought we were going to draft CJ Stroud. It was like inevitable. We were talking about trading up. We were actually in talks with trading up. Houston heard about it. They went up there. They not only did they got one of the best defenders last year in Will Anderson, but they also got CJ Stroud. There are some teams that, if they see that their rival is going after somebody, they can come up there and try to steal it. So, but I do think if New England's smart, they make that trade down, and you hope that JJ McCarthy is there at that pick. Because if he is, then you got him.
Yeah, and then you kick him up with an offensive line, which New England's offensive line is terrible.
Right.
I do think that New England, for all extensive purposes, are either going to draft whoever's out of May and Jaden Daniels. I would be very, very shocked if the Chicago Bears or any of those picked either McCarthy or Daniels just because they're going off of the ESPN experts, which are not experts, by the way. They're just marketing. You know what I'm saying? They're used car salesmen, is what they are on all of these sports analysis things. That's kind of the way that they're acting. They're trying to sell certain guys. The defensive tackle class is absolutely fucking loaded this year. If Tavondre Sweat can funk, you know that this draft class is absolutely loaded with guys like Byron Murphy, Darius Robinson. You've got Michael Hall Jr., which I'm not kind of a big fan of. Everybody loves Braden Fisk for whatever reason. And then you get the LSU guys who, as of late, hasn't really produced a lot. But Mason Smith is going to be pretty solid. Jim Jefferson is probably going to be a pretty solid still in the late rounds. And it's so deep on the defensive tackle, especially. Maybe not as much on the defensive end. There's some pretty decent pass rushers like Jared Verse and Dallas Turner. But for the most part, the defensive tackle class in this class is pretty deep. The offensive lineman is really deep. And this is, the offensive lineman and quarterback is exactly what New England needs. Now, should we talk about Dallas? Can you hear me, Kev?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Okay. Should we talk about Dallas, Kev?
Yeah, go ahead. Honestly, I was going to say, I know that I'm not a Rams fan, but since you lost Aaron McDonald, if that kid from the if that kid Longhorns is there, you pick him up to replace Aaron McDonald.
Yeah, that Byron Murphy kid. He's going to be an absolute beast.
Yeah.
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 Oh, you can go ahead.
But as far as Dallas goes, I'm looking. I know Dallas lost some offensive linemen during the off season. They lost Tyrone Smith. They did not replace the running back position, which I seriously still thought you guys should have gotten Derrick Henry, or at least somebody that can come in and do that. Tony Pollard went with us. Yeah, I know there's rumors that Ezekiel Elliott might reunite with Dallas. I heard that rumor as well. But let me ask you this, though. I know you're a fan of Dallas. If you're Dallas, what do you do? Like, if you're Jerry Jones and you're in that war room, do you get a running back, or do you wait in the later rounds, or do you get yourself a lineman to protect Dak Prescott, or what would you do?
I'd probably wait until the second round because I don't think that running backs are going to go off the board until the second round. And I'm pretty sure that guys like Trey Benson, like I said, this running back class is actually pretty decent. It's not the best running back class, but it's a very, very decent running back class. They're going to be because I you know who I want. I want Jonathan Brooks. That's exactly who I want. And so I don't think that I think that picking him with the first pick is going to be. I think that's a bit of a reach in the first round, especially you're going to have some offensive line help. I like the kid out of Duke, Graham Barton, to put into that line because you can put him anywhere. Now, granted, he's probably going to be more likely to play inside, but there's a kid in Texas right now that I like too, who's really good at the rush, who's going to be a good left tackle. I think that, if you can even trade back and still get Graham Barton, which you probably could, accumulate more draft picks in the second round, you can probably get you a few offensive linemen and still land Jonathan Brooks, which is what I would do. because the O line class is pretty deep, and you can get some pretty solid starting left tackles out of this class into the mid to late second round. So, a guard like Graham Barton, I think that I would shoot for that. Go ahead and get another guy like Travis Fredericks that was always that power that could drive somebody back. That's kind of what you want to look for. Keep the pocket clean. And then maybe in the second round, pick up a Jonathan Brooks. But if you can accumulate another second round pick by trading back, then, you can get the kid out of Texas at tackle. Maybe you get a Tyler Guyton as well to put on that line. Now, you're probably going to have to use Tyler Smith for a little while at left tackle until you can develop one of these guys. Because these guys are probably not – the guys in the second round have potential to be a starting left tackle. They probably have the athleticism to do it, but a lot of them just don't have the experience. So you may have to move Tyler Smith out there for a little while until you develop one of these guys, but then you develop them, and then you'll have your starting left tackle. You can kick Tyler Smith back at guard. Then you bring in Graham Barton. He's going to be a guard on the inside. He's going to be pretty nasty, and then you get you a good right tackle. Your line is set for years, and like I said, I don't think that the Cowboys are going to do very well this year. They haven't changed enough. If you bring in Jonathan Brooks, he may not even start until like week 8. I don't know, which is okay because we're not looking to pick up a lot of wins this year. I think that next year Dallas is in position to be at the top of the draft. And so basically I'm building a team for Shadir Sanders at this point in time. That's what I'm doing.
Well, let me ask you, the whole rumors are going out about Michael Parsons wanting traded. In that situation, do you find somebody in the draft later on to possibly maybe replace Micah if he decides to leave?
Well, if Micah is going to leave, then I'm going to trade him to somewhere like the Rams, who just lost Aaron Darnold, right? They need that pass rush. And then I go ahead and trade him to somebody like that. I get up there in the first round, and I go ahead and replace him with Byron Murphy, the kid that's coming out of Texas right now. Because you're going to get pass rush for pass rush. And that's the only way that I'm letting go of Micah Parsons is if I'm going to get something of equal value on that defense. But like I said, with Dallas doesn't look like they're in a good position. They haven't changed. They're going to continue with McCarthy. McCarthy is a defense's worst nightmare, and I get it. I understand. Like I said, the Cowboy fans, like I said, just haven't. Dak is not going to be the guy this year. They're going to figure him out. Ironically, I think that they're going to figure out Jalen Hurts as well. So, depending on how this draft turns out for New York and Washington, it's very well that the NFC East is going to be wide open next year because I do believe that Dallas is not going to do that good this year. They're in a rebuild mode as far as I'm concerned. So you build from the front back. So you want to go ahead and look for offensive linemen in the first round. If you got to trade back, accumulate some picks. Maybe you can land a few picks later on in the draft. And you can steal that wide receiver. You can steal a Keon Coleman or his counterpart Wilson or somebody like that. If all these players are like, I want to get traded. CeeDee Lamb's like, I want to get traded. Micah Parsons like, I want to get traded. Okay, we'll trade you, but we're going to get something equal out of you. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how much you can get out of CeeDee Lamb, but I know that Micah Parsons is worth a first-round pick. He's just an athletic freak. And I don't know a team out there that wouldn't want to have a Micah Parsons on their team.
Anybody in that first round, if Dallas called every team, I would assume that everybody would listen to that offer for Michael Parsons. If you don't, you're an idiot.
Yeah, he's going to change your defense.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, oh, I was gonna say, but where do you think he would fit? Like, where would you, if Micah Parsons were to get traded, where would you think that he would fit and just make an ultimate change where they're instantly a competitive Super Bowl threat?
I think if you put Michael Parsons with put him with the if you put him with like the Raiders, with him and Max Crosby together, and with them getting Wilkins in the free agency, I think if the Raiders offered their first round to Dallas and they decided you can have Michael Parsons. Michael Parsons would make that Raiders team so he would make Patrick Mahomes have nightmares playing against the Raiders twice a year. You can also put him with the Rams. I think the Rams would be like good enough to fit in that situation. Who knows? Maybe if you bring Michael Parsons into the Rams, Aaron McDonald might come out of retirement and see that.
And okay, here's one for you. Because I agree. If you put him with the Raiders right now with that defense, they may not have much as way of offense, but that defense, you wouldn't be able to stop it. And that offense can just control all they would have to do is control the clock. That's all they would have to do.
Yep.
Even if you went down and fucking kicked field goals. Yep. This guy, between him and Max Crosby, they're going to shut down that whole entire field. It's going to be just a freakishly show. Like I said, and then you get, like, say, a Michael Penix. You don't have to get one of these quarterbacks in the first round. If you're the Rams, get a fucking Michael Penix then. You know what I'm saying? But you look at it, right, and here's the thing that I'll go ahead and kick to you and see what you would think. What if Dallas traded him to, say, because they just upgraded their quarterback position, they already had a pretty strong team. Their offense actually looks like it could be pretty dominant, a ball control offense. But what happens if you kick Michael Parsons to Atlanta?
He automatically changes that defense for the better. Michael Parsons automatically is a game changer for Atlanta. Atlanta would be another good area for him to be at, because Atlanta does need help in that area. They do need pass rush. So if there's anything that can get Atlanta over the hump, I mean, you got Kirk Cousins now as your quarterback. You got some really good young offensive weapons. You got a pretty decent offensive line, but your defense has been the lackest part of your game. Michael Parsons automatically would make that defense better.
I mean, their defense is pretty decent. It's decent. It's not great,
right?
But it's pretty decent. And if you add a piece like Michael Parsons, well, then that's kind of like the Green Bay Packers adding Reggie White with Brett Favre. You know what I'm saying? It took them to that point to where now your defense is able to go ahead and stop an offense, and your offense is able to control the games, score some points, and put pressure on the opposing team to go ahead and keep up with you. And you're not going to be able to do that with a Micah Parsons up your ass. So yeah, I think that Atlanta's got a top pick. I think that they got was it 9 or 7 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so they have the capital to bring in a Micah Parsons. That would be enough for me to say, you know what? Okay, I'll go ahead and listen to you. I can replace Micah Parsons in this draft. Maybe we bring in a Dallas Turner. Maybe we bring in that Byron Murphy kid. Maybe we, look at that Latu kid. And, we bring in somebody that can go over there and replace Micah. It's probably going to take him a while to get the same production that Micah gets. But, I mean, it's essentially basically like a prime Aaron Darnold coming to you. And you're not going to turn that down right now because he's in his prime. He's in his prime right now. And he's only going to get better. And so he's a physical freak. He's going to show up. He's going to put in the work. You don't have to worry about that, and he's just going to make that defense better. So, it's it's going to take a lot for me to get rid of Micah Parsons, a lot, but something into that effect, I probably would.
There's another team to look at in this situation too, is because the defensive tackle area and the offensive line tackle and the receiver core are stacked. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers come knocking and you put him, Michael Parsons, in there with Caleb Mack and Joey Bosa or Nick Bosa. You put or one of the and you put that and you have that as your defense with the Chargers. That's another thing to look at too. But I'm going to throw one at you. Say, for example, CD Lamb does want gone, and they decide they got a trade partner. Say, for example, if Dallas decides to trade CD Lamb to Arizona, and now Dallas is sitting there at that pick, and they have a choice of between Malik Neighbors, they have that choice between Marvin Harrison. If you were in that situation and you trade Lamb, and Arizona decides to take him, or New York, or whoever decides to take him, who are you drafting at that point?
Man, because it's Dallas and we need so much, especially, with the offensive line taking a hit. And if you're talking about Micah Parsons going away, we're going to need some defensive line taking a hit. I don't know if I wouldn't trade back to somebody who's a little bit more wide receiver desperate and then, draft more, because I like Brian Thomas Jr., actually. As far as like between Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison, Roman Duzier, I'm taking Brian Thomas Jr. And, that would be my guy anyway. And he's slated to be the fourth wide receiver off the board, probably. I think he's a pretty strong four right now. But you've also got, like I said, you got a Donde Mitchell, who's a gifted wide receiver. You got Roman Wilson out of Michigan, who's another gifted wide receiver. You've got that Lad McConkey out of Georgia, who's another good wide receiver. These are, dependable wide receivers and whatnot. So I think that, when you got a guy like a Lad McConkey, who's being compared to Garrett Wilson right now, by the numbers and by his style of play and by his speed and his attributes, you're getting this guy in like the second round probably. And, maybe even in the third round, depending on how crazy the draft gets and people drafting on needs and positions over just saying, oh, okay, we're going to listen to ESPN. If you can get a Lad McConkey in the third round, you could probably, like I said, I prefer Keon Coleman actually, as far as a wide receiver goes. He's a traditional old school wide receiver.
Yeah.
I think I try to go ahead and increase my picks and get as much as I can. Like I said, I think that essentially what you're doing is you're setting this team up for next year to draft Shadir Sanders, because I don't think that we're going to do that much this year. So I'm not going to put a lot of expectations on this class, just for them to progress this year and to get better for next year. Because whenever Shadir Sanders gets in, much like Houston did, Houston set it up brilliantly. And whenever they drafted, because at first I wasn't high, this, I'm not high on Ohio State quarterbacks. And so at the beginning, before I started really looking at the draft, I told Stephen Rose, I said, you guys just might as well draft Bijan Robinson and then wait till next year to get a quarterback, because you have a lot of pieces. You can set the run game up easier than you can set the passing game. And, we can, you can go on from that and get your quarterback next year, because that's like a generational running back. And then he still is. I think that Bijan is a generational running back. But like I said, I'd go for Bijan. Whenever I went back and I watched tape, and then I watched that, I don't know if it was the Rose Bowl or what they played in against Georgia, I'm like, no, you got to get C.J. Stroud. but they had set it up. They had the offensive line there, so I knew that their offensive line wasn't bad. They added pieces to that offensive line, that just made it an awesome offensive line with Juice Scruggs, Jarrett Patterson. They went that direction. When they added Tank Dell, I knew that their wide receiver core, much like New England, I think that New England is this year's Houston Texans. Uh, Whenever they added Tank Dell and Xavier Hutchins, Xavier Hutchinson last year, I was like, D'Amico knows what he's doing. And so I knew that their wide receiver class group was already good. I knew that their defense was pretty decent. Wasn't great, but it was pretty decent. Whenever you add Will Anderson, that was like adding Micah Parsons to your team. Not as good as Micah Parsons. He's still developing though, but you were getting that centerpiece for your defense. And just like that, he turned that whole team around. New England in this draft is just the opposite. Their defense is already pretty decent. It's a really decent defense. They have the wide receivers there. Their offensive line is kind of struggling, so their offense is their main problem. So if you, like I said, you trade back, you get more draft capital because you don't have the draft capital that Houston was able to build this team back so quick. But if you can trade back with Minnesota, get a couple of picks in the first round, now you can build this team back like in record time, just like the Houston. Because Nick Cesario showed us that this can be done. And I told them last year, coming in, I had like Stephen Rose doubted it. A few people that I worked with doubted it. You know what I'm saying? They were sitting there saying, "Oh no, Houston will improve, but I'll be happy with 7 wins." I said, "Y'all are going to win the fucking division. Y'all are going to win the division, dude." And I see what they're doing. They're in the win now mode. And I said, the stuff that D'Amico Ryans did. This is why I kind of like the Houston Texans. This is why I traditionally like New England as well. I was a New England fan before they started winning Super Bowls, but Nick Cesario, this is what he does, and he's just one of the smartest people whenever it comes to doing this process and getting talent in on his team. So it's just really interesting right now. It's hard for me not to look and kind of root for the Texans as well. Even though I'm still going to be a Dallas fan. I'm still a New England fan. But you've got to respect the process that they've done. And, dude, I'm telling you, man, I think that New England we'll see how good New England really is without Nick Cesario. Because if they go back and they do this process, they could potentially go ahead and set that team up. But I don't know if they're going to do that. I think that they're just going to take the, next best quarterback, which would probably be Jaden Daniels. Actually, the best quarterback in the draft that's going to be left is J.J. McCarthy. But they're going to listen to ESPN. They're going to pick Jaden Daniels. So,
well, not to talk off subject, because I saw Scott Casey Gill posted something about, did we see what happened to Tony Khan? Yes, I saw the video, and it was brilliant seeing Tony Khan get spike power drived. They should do it more often.
Yeah, but it's hard to watch wrestling. I don't even watch WWE. You know what I'm saying anymore?
Yeah.
So it's just.
That's all I'm saying.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I saw the clip. That's all I can say. It was fun.
No, I don't keep up with this guy. I don't keep up with WWE, so I'm damn sure not keeping up with A&W wrestling. Worst franchise right now in football, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Which
to be honest with you though, the way I look at it, this is something that people don't understand about. I know I'm a Titans fan. I know the Texans are in the AFC South, but even I can honestly tell you, everybody thought they were idiots for all the years. But the Prodigal Hill here did say last year that Houston was going to be the one team that's going to be up and people need to watch for. And now, during the offseason, they got Joe Mixon now as a running back. They got D'Amico Autry and Alzir Shar from us. They're pretty much at the point now, very loaded. They got a really good young. Then they got Stephon Diggs. in a trade. Now they got Stephon Diggs with that young receiving core with C.J. Stroud. Um, I would even put I'm going to go ahead and say this. I know Steven would not want me to, but I wouldn't be shocked if Houston's in the AFC Championship. Just how good that team looks right now.
I mean, and I know that he isn't going to want me to say this neither, but I can see them going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You know, I could see them making it all the way to the Super Bowl. Let me go ahead and turn this down a little bit. I guess I'm going to have to listen to the draft through Pat McAfee here. So I'm just going to turn it down a little bit and just see who picks who. But yeah, I think that ultimately, I think that everything just landed fucking right for Steven Rose to land Nick Cesario, to land D'Amico Ryans. Then you get C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson. You go ahead and prove everybody wrong in the sports media by going out and performing very, very well and making it to a playoff. You keep you essentially keep your draft pick because you still have Cleveland's draft pick, and you traded away your draft. I think that essentially everything just fell right for Houston, and I think that they're going to be good. I think that they're going to be a dynasty. I think that they're the next dynasty just because you look at how they use this, and this is going to be a really, really stacked draft, and it works out well for Houston. Let's say, okay, what are you looking for? A defensive tackle? This defensive tackle class is absolutely fucking loaded. You know what I'm saying? This is the perfect year to need a defensive tackle. You need offensive line help? The class is loaded. You're going to be able to get offensive line in the third and fourth round. Everybody says they need wide receivers. I don't understand. You just got Stephon Diggs. I don't know why you would need a wide receiver, but you got a bunch of good safeties. It's going to be later in the 6th and 7th round, which is a position you need, maybe a linebacker. Go ahead.
The other guy they got too from Minnesota. They got Hunter from Minnesota.
Yeah. They got Autry from y'all. They got Daniil Hunter from Minnesota.
They got Alzir Shard from us, a good middle linebacker.
And they got Aziz from San Francisco, a linebacker.
Yeah.
Are you still there, Kev? Can you hear me? Oh, I'm just making sure. I got these headphones in, so.
Alzir played with us last year. He led us in tackles. He was really good, dependable middle linebacker. So Houston's getting. If Houston got themselves a defensive tackle to play with Will Anderson and D'Amico Autry in that front line, I mean, I think C.J. Stroud could be just as good or even better than Patrick Mahomes.
I think he's already better than Patrick Mahomes. I think J.J. McCarthy is better than Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is a product of his system. And I can already tell you right now that they're going to fucking draft Xavier Worthy. That's going to be the pick because, Patrick Mahomes needs his wide receivers to be wide open. The reason why I like C.J. Stroud and the reason why I like J.J. McCarthy is if you go back and you look, they could get the ball out. They get the ball out quick. They're not bullshitting, and they could put it on a dime to their wide receivers, hit them in routes, well-timed, well-placed footballs, and they can fit it into tight windows. That was the thing with C.J. Stroud that I went back and I looked at, and, everybody's talking about how great Marvin Harrison is. Marvin Harrison had a fucking cornerback in his pocket on almost every fucking pass that he caught. So, if Marvin Harrison was to, say, get with Kansas City, I don't know how good he would be. I'm not saying that Marvin Harrison's bad. I'm just saying that's not fucking Patrick Mahomes' game. You know what I'm saying? Trying to go ahead and fit that ball while you're running with the wide receiver or a cornerback in your hip pocket. I don't know how well it's going to work out for Arizona, to be honest with you, because I don't think that that's Kyler Murray's game neither. That's not Jalen Hurts' game. But that is C.J. Stroud's game. That's why Marvin Harrison was so good, is that, C.J. Stroud could hit him right in the middle. He's going to get that ball, and he doesn't have to break stride. It's going to be interesting to see how it's going to work in Arizona for him. And, everybody likes Malik Neighbors. I think that like a guy like Brian Thomas Jr. would probably be better for Kyler Murray, to be honest with you. But we know that they're going to go for Marvin Harrison Jr. because as far as size and speed, he is a generational talent. And for a true quarterback that could play true quarterback for you guys, he'd probably be really good with Will Levis. You know what I'm saying? Because Will Levis could probably go ahead, hit him in stride. He could do those passes. He may not be getting the longer plays that he did with C.J. Stroud, but he would be getting pretty good big plays with Will Levis and learn his timing because that's Will Levis's game. That's not Kyler Murray's game. That's not Jalen Hurts' game. That's not Patrick Mahomes' game. They're system quarterbacks. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why everybody's looking at Caleb Williams, and this is why everybody's so high on Caleb Williams, is because you know that Caleb Williams is going to be a system quarterback, and I don't think that's going to work out very well in Chicago.
Is there anywhere where you see Chicago not drafting Caleb Williams and drafting one of the other quarterbacks?
If I'm Chicago and I'm not drafting Caleb Williams, I'm trading back because I know that I have some work to do on my team. I think that their wide receivers are I think that they fixed the wide receiver spot, but your offensive line, you're going to need help on the offensive line. Maybe a tight end like Brock Bowers, something like that. They got 2 picks, but no, I don't really see them not drafting Caleb Williams. And I think that for the most part, they're probably going to go wide receiver again in the first round. You're going to have to get a wide receiver that's going to be open by a country mile, or that can go ahead and get runs in short spaces because he's probably going to check down. You're going to have a lot of the same issues with Caleb Williams that you had with Bryce Young. And that's the fact that, you need a speedy, fast wide receiver that's going to be open because some of the throws, much like Drake May, whenever I went back and looked at him, I was like, man, this kid's going to get picked off in the NFL. You know what I'm saying? He's going to be, some of those throws that he's throwing. And this is why, I think that it turns a lot of fans off. And I'll have to sit there and throw Dak Prescott into this group as well with Jalen Hurts, with Patrick Mahomes. When I watch their games, whenever I watch the Cowboys games, I see a lot of plays that should never happen. They look fake. You know what I'm saying? And whenever you look at Patrick Mahomes, when you look at Dak Prescott, and that's my team. So I'm throwing my own team under the bus. But whenever I look at these teams and looking at their offense, it looks fake and it looks like it's scripted. And this is why people are like, oh, it's scripted now. Because they're not making quarterback plays. They're not making NFL throws. You're looking at a lot of passes that should be picked off, from these guys. And the secondaries are just not making the plays on them. But they should have a lot more interceptions than they really have. And like I said, it's Patrick Mahomes, it's Dak Prescott, and it's Jalen Hurts. These are the and Kyler Murray, essentially. And like I said, Bryce Young is going to be the same thing as Kyler Murray. So it looks like that fucking Caleb Williams is kind of like the same thing to me. Whenever I watched him at USC, it was kind of like the same thing.
The biggest thing I have an issue with this whole thing is I'm a Titans fan, so I'll go ahead and say this. C.J. Stroud was the best quarterback out of that draft last year. But I actually honestly believe that Will Levis is the second best over I know a lot of people didn't want to pick Will Levis because he played for Kentucky, and Kentucky is not a very popular SEC team. But I knew Bryce Young was not going to be better than C.J. Stroud. Now, I know that for a while, Stephen Rose wanted them to get Bryce Young over C.J. Stroud, and I'm like, no. And you said it yourself too, Paulson, is that if you look at some tape, if any of y'all on there go back and look at some tape of John Elway playing and look at it side by side with C.J. Stroud, there's a lot of similarities between John Elway and C.J. Stroud. And you could put C.J. Stroud with any team in the NFL, and he would still throw for 4,000 yards. With any team in the NFL. You can put him with the Ravens. You can put him with the Titans. You can put him with San Francisco. You can put him with any team. And that what Poston is pretty much trying to say is, everybody, is that, and I played the position at quarterback, so I can honestly tell you this. When you are a quarterback that's built for the system and you go to a team that's not really good or fits your system, you're going to struggle. Caleb Williams is going to have a lot of heartache. He's going to have a lot of, because not only are you facing a really good Green Bay Packers team, but Detroit is pretty stacked too. And you got to face these teams twice a year. So I honestly think that, well, I think the Bears will draft Caleb Williams. If I'm Caleb Williams, I would pull an Eli Manning and I would ask for a trade as soon as they did. Because why would you want to go to Chicago?
Yeah, it's where quarterbacks go to die. And if you think about it, right? And I'm just, you can say what you want to. I just, put the shit out here on the internet for posterity purposes, calling it like I see it, right? But let's say Chicago takes Caleb Williams, right? And Minnesota trades up with New England and they trade J.J. McCarthy. Or hell, let's not even say that they take J.J. McCarthy. Let's go ahead and give them the second best quarterback, in my opinion, in this draft, and Jaden Daniels. And Jaden Daniels comes out twice a year and beats the hell out of Caleb Williams twice this year. You know what I'm saying? It's going to kind of demoralize him. And it's going to be like, well, you were the first pick. You were the chosen one. And, is he going to be able to mentally overcome that and develop as a quarterback? I don't know. Like I said, USC has this issue. They got Carson Palmer in the NFL, and ever since then, everybody has been putting more expectations on USC quarterbacks. And we see the history with Matt Leinart, with Mark Sanchez, with Matt Barkley. They just don't really work out in the NFL like, most people anticipate them. And so, I think that, like, it's a good thing that you have ESPN, because I don't think that Caleb Williams is a solid quarterback myself. You know what I'm saying? He's not a number one pick, in my opinion, overall. However, with ESPN pushing everybody to draft Caleb Williams with the first pick, first overall, he's going to go to a Chicago where you're not going to, like, jeopardize it. I think that, if you're going to jeopardize somebody's career, it may as well be the fourth or fifth best quarterback in a draft class, not the first. So this puts guys like J.J. McCarthy and Jaden Daniels in better positions to go ahead and succeed in the NFL because they're going to be on better teams. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this draft shakes out, especially since everybody's probably going to go stir crazy for the quarterbacks in the first round.
That's the biggest thing, because you look at the quarterback position in the draft over the years. Look at some of the busts that we've had. Jamarcus Russell. We've had Ryan Leaf. We don't even want to have to mention Ryan Leaf, but I had to. As much as I hate to say it, Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota. Mariota was doing good with Tennessee for a while. He got hurt, and then he lost his confidence. And ever since then, it's just been downhill for him. there really hasn't been that great of a. I don't know. I don't know if you agree, Poston, but I don't think there's been a really great quarterback draft class in a while. Like,
Yeah, I mean, you get hit or misses. I'll probably say, man, yeah, it's kind of hard to sit there and say a great quarterback draft class.
yeah,
Is Detroit already on the line? Did Detroit trade up?
I don't know. I think they did. Oh, let me go. I'll be right back there, Poston.
All right.
Yeah, I think that. I, I think they said
Did
Detroit
Detroit
trade, so we'll see.
did Detroit trade up to number one? Yeah, I was trying to watch it and then it froze on me.
Chicago is number one on the clock.
Okay.
Chicago is still on the clock, even though they're getting booed here in Detroit.
Okay, so yeah, they had Eminem come out, and I was like, "Did Detroit move up to number one?" I guess they did. You know, it is what it is. Hey, Detroit, we'll go ahead and send you Micah Parsons if you give us that draft pick.
Well, that's because they had the draft in Detroit and Eminem, so that's why I would have been confused as well if I didn't know that.
Oh, come on, Chicago! You don't need that draft pick. Trade it for Micah Parsons. And with the first pick, first overall, Dallas selects J.J. McCarthy, quarterback, Michigan. Talk about a plot twist that would be, huh?
I tell you what, that would be the biggest troll job in NFL history. He ends up drafting somebody else besides Caleb Williams, and people would be like, "Huh? What?"
We're like, Dallas will be looking for a trade partner for Dak Prescott now. Yeah, I would go ahead and I would dump Micah Parsons on the Chicago Bears to get J.J. McCarthy. Well, I thought that they were starting the draft. It looks like they haven't started yet. Yeah, Chicago's on the clock. I just saw Eminem out there. Might
Yeah,
just freed him up. I'm watching Pat McAfee. He's a little bit more professional these days. You remember he used to do the shit out of his basement.
I'll tell you what, Pat McAfee is probably one of the main people that I watch, honestly, because at least Pat McAfee makes his show fun, and they have fun with their show. They don't try to be serious and all that. But I mean, honestly, the way I look at it with Chicago is you just got rid of Justin Fields to Pittsburgh. You know, Caleb Williams and Justin Fields ain't that much difference in their play style. So, and I know that's probably going to piss a lot of USC fans off, but I don't give a shit. Um, they're not much different from each other. So I'm looking at it like this. So you're trading one guy and you're replacing him with pretty much his clone. You just did an AI version of Justin McCarthy. I mean Justin Fields. I only said McCarthy because he just came on the screen. So, um, but I tell you right now, JJ McCarthy may be the best quarterback out of this draft class.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't think that's like I said. I like Bo Nix. I think he has potential if he goes to the right team. He's going to be like an Alex Smith, more or less. That's what I got for his ceiling with Bo Nix. It may take a while. He may not do well his first year. Kind of like I kind of feel like Bo Nix is kind of like the guy that you picked up last year, a few years ago, Malik Willis. Like I don't think I would put him out there to start, And if you could develop him for a little while, that would be the best way to go. But by far, he'll probably be a pretty solid, pretty safe pick. You know, I think that JJ McCarthy is just. I think he's a surgeon at quarterback. I mean, I went back and I looked up uh, films on all these guys, and I was like, I kept coming back to McCarthy as being the best quarterback in this draft. And so it's going to be interesting to see what team he goes to. If he goes to Minnesota, man, it's going to be that offense is going to be insane.
Honestly, I look at this and I'm looking at some of the guys in the green room, as they call it. Where does some of these? Okay, I know this is going to be an off topic situation, but some of these college players shouldn't be having enough. They shouldn't be having this enough money to be wearing some Armani looking suits with like 24 gold carat gold chains and stuff like that. But you know, I do believe still that college players get.
Yeah, they get paid now, so a lot of these guys probably made a pretty good penny just playing in college football now, which I think is kind of like made the game a little bit more synthetic a little bit. I think gambling has kind of screwed up football as well. And everybody looks at football cynically now. And so I think it's kind of taken away a lot from the game. But when you see guys, whenever you see kids that can really play quarterback,
Yeah.
You're going to be interested in it because you still see that there's hope for the NFL being the NFL with a guy like C.J. Stroud, with a guy like J.J. McCarthy coming in. You got some talent out there that could really play football, like really play the position coming into the NFL. So Jaden Daniels is going to be another one of those guys. With Aaron Rodgers being one of the last gunslingers out there that can play the quarterback position still today, in a league filled with Kyler Murray's and Pat Mahomes and your
Jalen Hurts, your Lamar Jacksons out there.
Yeah, Dak Prescott's and stuff like that look just kind of like Madden gameplay and stuff. Like, as far as I'm concerned, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this one too. And the guy wasn't completely horrible neither. I just think that he was kind of underrated. But I think that Lamar Jackson kind of reminds me of Tavarius Jackson.
Yeah.
Back in the days, he didn't. He was a good quarterback. I mean, he could run his ass off. He just wasn't as good of a passer. You know what I'm saying? I think he was like in the 50s, but it was the high 50s. But I thought his passing was good enough to, since he could run like he could, that he should have had more opportunities. It's kind of like, and I know I'll get some hate for this one for sure, but it's kind of like Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick wasn't a great quarterback, but he could run, and that was the thing. And so if you were a team that needed a quarterback in 2014, 2015, 2016, you could do worse than having Colin Kaepernick there just to go until you could develop a quarterback. What's up?
Roger Goodell's up.
Is he up there?
Yeah.
Well, get off my screen, Pat. Caleb Williams, I heard it.
Yep.
So, yeah, we kind of figured that Chicago would go ahead and repeat the same mistake, with Mitch Trubisky and Justin Fields and now Caleb Williams.
Caleb Williams, I'm sitting there thinking right now, he looks happy, but I can honestly tell you, deep down inside, he's probably wondering whether or not how many sacks is he going to be able to take. And
yeah, that's why if I was Chicago, I would have traded back. I would have probably kept Justin Fields, to be honest with you. I wouldn't have even traded Justin Fields. If I'm Chicago, and I got a guy like Caleb Williams, I'm looking at an offense. Maybe you can trade back with Atlanta. I think Caleb Williams would be okay in Atlanta. I don't think he would be great, but he would be okay. He's going to be an improvement over Desmond Ritter. Uh, and I think that, as long as, he utilizes Byron, Bijan Robinson and, he's got those wide receivers where he can move. I think that that would have been a good trade partner to trade back, get you some defense, get you some offensive line in this draft, get you a wide receiver in this draft, a Marvin Harrison Jr. maybe. And I think Justin Fields would have been okay. But, now what's going to happen is Justin Fields is going to play behind Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh. And guess what's going to happen? Justin Fields is going to learn from Russell Wilson. He's going to be on a better team. He's going to improve his game under center, and they're going to make a quarterback out of him because he's already got some experience as a starter. He's just going to be better. Look at all these check down passes. You're not going to do this in the NFL. You see the highlight films that they have of Justin Fields. I mean, of Caleb Williams, and see, he can't. It's like he can't really play under center that well. He's a smaller guy. I just, it is what it is. It's ESPN doing ESPN shit, and it's always Chicago that falls for ESPN stuff.
See, to be honest with you, I like my quarterbacks to be way above 6 foot. I mean, Peyton Manning was 6'5", Brady was 6'5". Will Levis that we got is 6'4". C.J. Stroud's about 6'3", 6'4". You want to have a really good tall quarterback that can see the field over that offensive line. And not to say that short quarterbacks can't do well, because Drew Brees did well, Russell Wilson did well, but in this league, though, the athletes are a lot faster now than what they were. But the problem I also have is, too, there's not much defense, and now that they took away that one tackle stuff during the offseason now, where you can't, grab them by the legs and drag them down anymore, it's become the no fun league. So
and it's going from the no fun league to the hard to watch league. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, you get these guys like Caleb Williams, like Jalen Hurts, that are, making these ridiculous throws that they have no business making. And personally, to me, this is one of the reasons why I don't like watching football so much, is because it's like it's questioning the fans' intelligence. This is another reason why I stopped wrestling as well, is because there's no effort in it. These guys are just like, oh, well, you're a mark. They look down and look at you like marks instead of, customers that are paying for their product and investing in their product because you like them for their characters, like, The Undertaker or The Rock for their characters and the stories that they were portraying and the effort. This new generation that's coming out in wrestling just seem entitled, and they're, they look at the fans like marks, so they come out there, cry and complain about how everybody's taking advantage of them and all this other stuff. That's just not interesting to me as a, fan. And this is the same thing with this right here, is that whenever the defense has to be dumbed down for guys like Patrick Mahomes, for guys like Dak Prescott, and guys like Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, and these guys. And that's the one thing that gets me. That's why I don't really like watching those games as much. And Dallas is my team. You know what I'm saying? That's my team. So for me to sit there and say that I don't like watching the Dallas games because the game looks too dumb, that's me being as real as I can be.
Honestly, when I look at an organization with quarterbacks, Green Bay doesn't get enough respect, because when I look at that, they had Brett Favre, they had Aaron Rodgers behind Brett Favre for a while. As soon as Brett left, Aaron Rodgers was ready. Then as soon as Aaron Rodgers left, Jordan Love got the Packers to the playoffs. It's smart for young quarterbacks to have a veteran that they can learn behind. So that's why I feel like if Caleb Williams would have went to Atlanta would have traded up and he would have sit behind Kirk Cousins, he would have learned a little bit more.
Yeah, but like I said, now, And I think that actually if Caleb Williams would have went to like a New England and sit behind Jacoby Brissett or something, that could work because there's nothing that says that New England has to start their quarterback that they draft this year. They got Jacoby Brissett. I think Joby Brissett, is a pretty decent quarterback. If you get, the team set up for your future franchise quarterback next year, you can actually set him, get those offensive linemen placed up. Maybe you get Keon Coleman or something like that. And then, if Jacoby Brissett does pretty good, does a solid job, then you know what he's learning behind Jacoby Brissett. You don't have to worry about. You can go ahead and have him mentored and build him up for about a year. And if Jacoby Brissett doesn't do good and you just end up collapsing this year, you go ahead and have him sit behind there, learn the system, learn the plays, learn the organizations, understand the teams, timing routes, and stuff like that. And then next year, you've got another high draft pick, and then maybe you get, another, big bodied wide receiver, or another threat for offense. Maybe you get a pass rusher or something next year, and then you'll be set. So
Goodell's up again. Washington's picks in.
2024 NFL Draft. Washington Commanders select Jaden Daniels.
holy shit, they went ahead and fucked up the draft, didn't they?
They got Jaden Daniels. Yep.
Now, if you're New England, you definitely should trade back. Well, I don't know. I don't really like Drake May that much.
Well, here's the thing about Jaden Daniels. I actually was surprised about this because there was reports coming out that he met with the Commanders and it didn't go very well. Obviously, that must have been. You know how ESPN likes to start their shit with people. So, what this is a good pick for the Commanders. They got a new coach in Dan Quinn. Your former defensive coordinator and everything. I think that this one right here is probably a good pick. He fits well with Washington.
Yeah, Washington didn't make a bad pick. They made a good pick. You know what I'm saying? I'm impressed because I thought that they were going to take Drake May. Now, if you're New England and everybody's putting pressure on you to take Drake May, now's whenever I trade back. Or I take JJ McCarthy. I do not take Drake May over JJ McCarthy.
Go
ahead.
Yeah, I still think to this once the season starts, once the season's over, I still think JJ McCarthy will be the one to be the best quarterback out of that draft. It's all about this. To me, with the draft, it's all about a popularity contest. It's like whoever ESPN's got their lips on is usually the ones who will be number 1, 2, and 3.
I take ESPN and even maybe to a degree Pat McAfee, and I take these other guys right here on the internet. Urinating Tree, That's Good Sports. What's the other guy's name? Scooter Magruder.
Yeah.
Them. Then you got Chat Sports, and then you've got a lot of these other guys that come out and try to do these mock drafts, like Franchise Guy and stuff like that. I think for the most part, they're more like used car salesmen. I like that Franchise Guy because he gives out a whole list of players, which you can go back and then watch and then see how good they really are. But I don't agree with a lot of his picks and stuff. You know what I'm saying? He's like, oh, yeah, Caleb Williams is by far the greatest quarterback that we've seen. He's the next Pat Mahomes. He's not the next Pat Mahomes. Even if, I like Pat Mahomes. He's at least 3 to 4 inches shorter, and, he's not going to be able to make the same kind of throws as Pat Mahomes does in the NFL. If he does, then, it's going to be garbage. His game is going to be garbage. So, no, you're not getting the next Pat Mahomes. But I guarantee. Oh, go ahead.
I want to let you know the Pats pick is in.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I'm trying to.
I mean, I look at the situation with Caleb Williams and I still feel like Daniels is going to be the better quarterback because I'm not, and I know I'm an SEC guy, and I know people are tired of SEC being this, but he plays in a played in a tougher conference than Caleb Williams. And anybody
Well,
has,
see, that's like it's weird because it's a double standard. They don't like Bo Nix because Bo Nix didn't play in a tough conference, but they like fucking Caleb Williams,
right?
and he played in the same conference.
Yep, it is a double standard with that.
And essentially, the game is pretty much the same. But you go ahead and look who came out of Oregon: Justin Herbert. Y'all were shitting on Justin Herbert, just like you're shitting on Bo Nix. You know, and how well did that work out?
I still think the reason why James Winston went over Marcus Mariota was because Florida State was a more popular college place than Oregon, and I feel like that's one of the reasons why that happened. And it is a popularity contest. It's like which college you play with is the where you're going to go. And it's weird because the one I'm watching is the College Game Day on ABC. It's weird to see Nick Saban on this side of the screen actually.
Yeah, instead of in the yeah, I'm watching the Pat McAfee show on YouTube, so it keeps buffering though. So yours is a little bit ahead of mine over here. You've got to listen to Pat McAfee over there try to sell. Pat McAfee's trying to sell. You better sell, Pat. You better sell to John Cena.
Yeah.
This is my New England Patriots. John Cena's New England Patriots.
Roger Goodell is up. We'll see what he says.
In the 2024 NFL Draft, the New England Patriots select Drake May.
Yeah, fuck. It's bad. Shit. He reminds me of Mac Jones. You know, when they had that problem with Mac Jones with Alabama, they thought he would be like the next heir apparent to Tom Brady. That's who Drake May reminds me of.
Drake May reminds me of Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He had that good year in Philadelphia that one year, but if he's like a Tim Couch or a Carson Wentz or something. I actually think that, Carson Wentz was Tim Couch for this generation pretty much. Because there's no way that this guy is making it in the early 2000s, late 90s. But, in this NFL, it's going to be the same thing as I've already talked about. It's hard to watch these guys. I think, like I said, if I'm New England, I'm trading back. I'm trading back all the way with Minnesota and letting Minnesota take J.J. McCarthy. Now, what's probably going to end up happening is Minnesota's going to trade up with San Diego. And San Diego is going to trade back. And Minnesota's probably going to end up with J.J. McCarthy, which is a good thing because that's the best team for him to go to, I think. But with that being said, of course, I'm not really stoked with Drake May, to be honest with you.
Well, the problem is with North Carolina quarterbacks. I mean, if you look at Sam Howell, he really didn't do much of anything when he came into the league. And this kid played under Sam Howell in North Carolina. I mean, if this was a basketball in North Carolina, I would say, okay, cool. Yeah, this guy's got some ball. But the North Carolina football team is usually not they don't usually have that good, strong. That's just my opinion on it. But
well, I love Mac Brown to death. Don't get me wrong. He's fucking got us a national championship. I have nothing but respect for the man. But how many quarterbacks has Mac Brown developed that are NFL caliber? You know what I'm saying? I love Colt McCoy. I love Vince Young. Don't get me wrong, but uh, Vince Young's career was less than desirable. Colt McCoy really never got a fair shake. Plus, he was oftentimes injured, and that's the Mac Brown offense. That's the same development as the Mac Brown development for Drake May. And is he better than Caleb Williams? I've got him as like my fourth best quarterback in this draft, so he's not hitting people on timing routes. He's not, you know, like I said, and plus you've got so many issues on your offensive line right now that by picking him, he's already going to be under center, and like you said, he's probably closer to a Mac Jones, much like Chicago drafted a quarterback that was much similar to the shit that they already had. So I don't understand the logic behind this at all. Yeah, I don't like his long drawback. It's almost like a Vince Young drawback. And I like Vince Young. Don't get me wrong. He won me a national championship. But look how long that drawback is.
As weird as it sounds with that class between Matt Leinart and Vince Young and Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler ended up having the better NFL career than those two.
Yeah. And he went to Vanderbilt. Yeah.
So Arizona's pick is in. We haven't seen any trades yet, which I'm kind of shocked by that. We have not seen it.
You're going to see one here in a second. Let Arizona get Marvin Harrison Jr. Yeah, so I was thinking about joining the TTC, and coming in as a Patriots fan in the TTC, because I heard that they were developing a little thing on Rumble. Yeah, but it's going to be kind of hard for me to come in as a New England Patriots fan. And the only reason why I was going to choose New England is because there's so many Cowboys content creators out there. It's kind of saturated in the TTC with Cowboys content creators.
Honestly, I look at this team. I look at New England, and you're right about their defense. Their defense is pretty solid. They got a pretty good receiving core. The biggest problem is their offensive line, and Drake May took a lot of sacks during his last year in North Carolina. So I'm sitting there like, you're gonna have to deal with that here in the NFL as well.
With the fourth pick, the 2024 NFL Draft, the Arizona Cardinals select Marvin Harrison Jr.
We kind of figured that. Okay.
Yeah, we knew that was going to happen.
Marvin Harrison Jr.
That was a lock, just like fucking Chicago was a lock. So far, the only ones that really kind of threw us for a loop was Washington and New England. Those two right there, kind of like, okay, now what do we got going on? So you got is it San Diego at number 5?
Yes. Yep.
This is where you're probably going to see that trade with Minnesota. Minnesota's about to trade up to number 5 and get the best quarterback in the draft. Calling it now.
One thing Marvin Harrison Jr. does have going for him is that he has a Hall of Fame dad. But then again, like you said earlier, would Marvin Harrison be as good as a receiver if he didn't have Peyton Manning to throw to?
Well, here you go, right? Yeah. Maybe the next few years, the Arizona Cardinals just absolutely suck, right? Except for Marvin Harrison Jr. And then maybe in a couple of years, they're in position to draft Arch Manning or something.
Oh my God. Now, I know that Arch Manning's not going to be probably the starter for for your Longhorns, but from what I saw, those couple of throws that he did in that little orange versus white game, That kid had a lot of Peyton Manning in him. I'm gonna say that much.
Yeah, and then there's no telling because you got Quinn Ewers, and it's something. And Quinn Ewers was out, last year a few games, so there's nothing to sit there and say that Quinn Ewers once again doesn't get hurt, and then Arch Manning comes in, and then he finishes out the season. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think that Texas Longhorns are going to be the next Alabama, and I think that honestly, Peyton Manning did go to a UT. He just didn't go to the UT that I was going for. He went to another UT. That would
Yes.
be your team.
Yeah.
So you got Peyton and we got Arch. So it's weird.
Well, I mean, honestly, I think Dion's son would definitely be a good quarterback next year for a lot of good teams. A lot of
Well,
teams.
see, this is the thing, right? And this is why I like McCarthy, and this is why I like Shadir Sanders. Is that Tom Brady mentored a couple of quarterbacks, and those quarterbacks are the quarterback for his alma mater, J.J. McCarthy, and you can tell in his game, and Shadir Sanders. That's why he's always sitting there saying, "Oh, Shadir should have done this, and Shadir should have done that." That's why I like those guys, is because they're already ahead of a lot of these other guys that are in this draft. And so now we get to sit back and see if Minnesota comes in. Minnesota's already built effectively to, be a challenger. The fucking NFC North is going to be absolutely what the NFC East used to be if they get JJ McCarthy, because you got Jordan Love and you've got the Green Bay Packers, you've got the Detroit Lions and Jared Goff in that run game. Um, they're like a few defensive pieces away of really having a solid defensive front. As it is right now, I know that they got rid of Akuda to Houston, which will be a lot better. C.J. Henderson will be a lot better too in Houston because of that defensive pass rush. But Detroit is set up in the position to where they're going to be highly competitive. Green Bay's already shown that they can make the playoffs. Uh, you've got Minnesota
Right.
with J.J. McCarthy that's going to be extremely competitive. The whipping boy is just going to be Chicago. I can tell you right now. Y'all are in a little bit of trouble.
Speaking of which, the Chargers have not even had their pick yet. They still got 3 minutes left, and they are. That tells me they're talking to somebody. If
Yeah,
they're
I think it's going to be Minnesota.
if
I
they're
think that
talking,
Chicago. I think Minnesota may be trying to fleece and maybe offer up a second round pick instead of their first round pick. But other than that, I think it's pretty much a wrap. Well, no, Minnesota doesn't have. I think that they're talking to Minnesota. They're probably kicking it around, trying to figure out, okay, you're going to get 11 and you're going to get 23, which is perfect for
don't be
San Diego.
don't be surprised at what I said earlier that maybe the Chargers want to trade Justin Herbert to Minnesota, and Minnesota take, and then the Chargers decide to draft JJ McCarthy, which could easily be another thing that can happen. I've heard a lot of different draft boards. Like some people think they're going to draft Malik Neighbors. Some people think they're going to go after Joe Alt. Some people think the Chargers are going to go after or trade down. So we'll see. Right now, it's still it's like they're like at the 2 minute mark and they still haven't made a pick yet. So
Well, I mean, you think about it. You get the 11 and 23rd pick, and as deep as this draft is, you don't need to reach for and it wouldn't be a reach. It would be a good solid pick if they pick Joe Wall. I'm not saying it wouldn't. However, this offensive line class is so deep, you can get an offensive lineman and the wide receiver that you need in this draft because you think you're picking an 11. Okay, you don't get Joe Walt. You get the next best kid, the kid out of Alabama that you just mentioned. I forget what his name is. And then you get Brian Thomas Jr. or Adonde Mitchell in the later back half of the draft. So you don't have to reach for Malik Neighbors neither. I don't believe that Malik Neighbors was solid, but I don't believe that Malik Neighbors is going to be the guy that's going to solve all your problems neither. So I mean, you could get a Brock Bowers as well, probably with one of those picks.
So the
And
Charger pick is finally in.
oh, so they did pick, huh?
Yep. Their pick is in.
I have to.
I'm shocked that there's really no much trades yet. It's kind of interesting. By the way, did you see Detroit's new uniform color schemes? They look pretty good.
No, I haven't seen them. I saw some of the Houston. Like I said, I've been keeping track on the Houston Texans. Dude, you wouldn't believe how many fucking Texans content creators are out there, dude. Like fucking guys that are fucking Detroit Lions fans are covering the Houston Texans.
So the Chargers need a wide receiver, an offensive tackle, cornerback, and an inside linebacker. That's what their draft needs are right now. So
They'll probably end up getting Malik Neighbors, if I was to guess.
Well, especially when you just lost Keenan Allen to Chicago, and then you traded Mike Williams to the Jets. Obviously, yeah, you do need to give Justin Herbert some help there.
I mean, I think I still would have traded back to number 11 and got Brock Bowers. You know, and then get a big offensive lineman.
I like the fact that Roger Goodell gets booed every time he comes out.
Because they still got Quentin Johnson there from TCU, and we didn't get to see a lot of him last year. But I still think that he's a pretty solid wide receiver.
Oh man, they drafted Joe Alt. You sons of bitches.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Oh,
Well, it was a good pick. I'm not gonna lie, but now you guys need to sit there. Now listen to this. This puts you guys on the clock. So Minnesota has what? What are y'all drafting at?
we're drafted number 7 right after. We're right after the Giants. So
Okay, fuck. If the Giants don't draft J.J. McCarthy, and J.J. McCarthy is still there, now your team is on the clock. Do you trade back with Minnesota and get that 11 and 23?
I think we trade back at that point because now you can easily get yourself a receiver and an offensive lineman.
I mean, you still got Amarius Mims on the board. I mean, you'll probably, the way it's looking, you're still going to have Romaduze there. You could probably get Amarius Mims with that 23 pick and get Romaduze at the number 11 pick, maybe.
Well, what's interesting is that Joe Alt did not look that happy about being drafted to the Chargers. Like when his name was called, he wasn't there. He was with his family. He looked like he was disappointed. But hey, this is actually
So you're not saying that Joe Alt was expecting to go to the Titans?
probably because he had a good meeting with us actually. But what's good about this now is that now the Titans can be a trade partner. They can get more picks now, and they can start adding pieces that they really need. So I'm okay with this actually.
Yeah. I mean, it works out good for y'all. And like I said, we'll have to. The only people that could screw it up would be New York, though. You know.
Well, the Giants are still for some reason. Or the question I have with the Giants though is are they going to stay with Daniel Jones, or do they really, or do they want to get away from Daniel Jones and go with another quarterback?
Like it's kind of hard because the Giants are so horrible, and being in that division, they really need offensive linemen. Does the Giants trade back with Minnesota? You know what I'm saying? And then you know, Minnesota trades up with the Giants right
Yeah.
now. They may be on the phone with Minnesota right now. Minnesota may be saying, "Hey, we'll offer you 11 and 23," and you know,
The
and
Giants
that
pick.
could be
The Giants pick is
a,
in. But you know what? But I still think the Chargers. The reason why their pick was so late is I think they were talking to somebody.
yeah.
They had to been. All right, Rain Carthon, I trust you, man. You done good last season with the picks. You did really good with the drip. I'm trusting him. We'll see if he can. If I was a Titans GM, I would listen to every offer out there right now because Minnesota does need a quarterback. We'll see what the Giants do. If the Giants don't get. I still think the Giants might get Malik Neighbors. If they get Malik Neighbors, that means they're staying with Daniel Jones, which would probably be a mistake if they do. But
I don't know. Maybe Daniel Jones hasn't had anybody to really throw to. We'll
yeah,
see how good Daniel Jones really is. But I see Drake May as Daniel Jones. You know, they're the same. They're the same kind of quarterback. So essentially, New England's got Daniel Jones 2.0 with Drake May.
oh, absolutely.
Common heel turn on Sweet Bill incoming. So somebody's using my name out there on the Pat McAfee show. Heel turn, of course. Got to be the heel. Party
Right.
like a heel.
The New York Giants select Malik Neighbors.
Malik
There
Neighbors.
you go. There you go. So now y'all are on the board. You still got JJ McCarthy. You know the Vikings want him. You know there's it's getting really close to uh, getting to be where their pick. So maybe they call you guys up and then make that trade with you guys.
Minnesota's got 2 first-round picks, so if I'm the Titans, that's exactly what I would do. I'd be like, all right, give me your other pick and your other pick, and we'll call it even.
Yeah, because this wide receiver draft class is so stacked that now you've got the number one and the number two, and off the board. And is Roma Dunze that much better than Adonde Mitchell? I don't think so. You know?
To be honest with you, you can also the Titans. You can also throw in to Minnesota. You can always throw in um, a player as well. And I know they've been trying to. They need to do away with Traylon Burks when they traded him for AJ Brown. He hasn't really done much for us, but maybe in a new system with JJ McCarthy, maybe he could. I mean, that's just some things that I would think about if I was the Titans, which I'm pretty sure right now the Titans did say they're going to listen to every offer that's sent to them. So we'll see.
So
But this
y'all
is a
could be
good,
making out like a bandit here.
but this is a really good pick. This is a really good pick for the Giants, though. So this. I mean, now I see what you're talking about as far as Dallas. Dallas didn't improve during the offseason. All these other NFC East teams are improving, and it's like,
Yeah. We're gonna see how good Daniel Jones really is. Now he has no excuses.
right, exactly, absolutely.
So, you got Malik Neighbors. He's probably going to be your franchise wide receiver. And if Daniel Jones doesn't work out, that means that y'all suck and y'all are picking up at the top of the draft again next year. Next year, you land a top 10 quarterback. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
If you're not getting Shadir Sanders, you can get that shit right out of your head because Dallas is getting Shadir Sanders. But, if Quinn Ewers or something like that's out there, you know.
Well, I can tell you this much: the Titans are not going to draft J.J. McCarthy. So, I mean, I'd be shocked if they do, but I don't see that happening. I
I
think,
don't see why they would draft. I mean,
yeah,
y'all got Will Levis last year.
yeah.
And unless y'all just think that J.J. McCarthy is going to fucking take y'all to the fucking Super Bowl when y'all need J.J. McCarthy, because like I said, ultimately he is kind of like I said this year, C.J. Stroud. Don't get me wrong. But if y'all are set at quarterback, and you got to, unless they're like, yeah, we'll go ahead and give you a king's ransom for fucking, Will Levis, and, you're fixing to trade Will Levis, why would you pick up McCarthy,
Well, right now the Titans are letting the time go down, so obviously they're on the phone with somebody.
Yeah, that would be like, yeah, if the fucking Viking says, okay, we're going to trade you the 11th and 23rd for Will Levis, well, then it makes sense to go ahead and draft J.J. McCarthy at this pick. But I don't see
I
that
mean,
happening.
well, the Titans pick is in. Well, damn. All right.
Well, okay, we'll see what y'all got. I think that it was a wrong move, though.
But then again, though, a pick can be in and a trade can still happen, too. So I've seen that happen. Or maybe it's one of those things where Minnesota's not willing to offer both first rounders. Maybe they're just willing to offer like a switch, and teams are like, nah.
Well,
Like,
the
if you
whole
really
reason
want,
why they got Houston's first rounder was to move up.
yeah. Of course, they're all like, well, the Titans need to get an offensive lineman. Need to get an offensive lineman. I'm like, what? I mean, they do need to get an offensive lineman, but this draft is stacked with them. So it's
Yeah, and you want quantity in this draft, not, you know, there's not much difference in quality. You want quantity in this draft because, the quality is pretty equal in a lot of these players.
you
And that's
know,
the thing.
Justin Simmons needs some. Justin Simmons is a great defensive end. He needs a really big, giant guy to play with him in the end. I would draft that. I would draft that dude from the Longhorns. Put him in there with Jeffrey Simmons.
Yeah, because y'all just got rid of Autry.
Yeah.
So if y'all traded back, y'all could get that guy and still get your offensive lineman. And
Yep.
then your defense and your offenses would be pretty set. And then you get you can get Jatavian Sanders, which is a pretty decent tight end in the second round. You know, I haven't even heard anybody mention Jatavian Sanders for a while. You've got great wide receivers that are going to be available in this all through this draft. So
Is Steven still coming in, or he?
I don't know. I better check because I'm laying in bed while I'm doing this thing. No, it doesn't look like he's came in. I sent him the link, but I sent him the link like after I sent it to you. So he's not coming in up on guest.
What I'll probably do is after this Titan pick, I'll probably get something to eat and come right back in. So that way I can refuel myself from the day.
Yeah, I'm just interested to see what you guys are going to do now. I think your pick becomes the most interesting because if you trade back, get the Byron Murphy kid, get the offensive lineman, y'all are going to be right up there with the fucking Colts and the Texans.
Yep. Let's see here. The pick is he Roger Dale out or he just sitting there?
Man, they're fucking waiting forever on your pick. This could be one of those Russo swerves. See, they're just kind of talking to Bill Belichick right now.
Now Zach Wilson got traded to Denver, so now he gets a fresh start.
Well, it's going to be interesting if he goes to Denver and balls out like Baker Mayfield did.
Yep.
Sometimes going to a team that's not completely fucking garbage is the best thing.
All right.
We'll see.
He gets booed every time. It's funny.
With the 7th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select J.C. Latham, tackle.
J.C. Latham, the tackle from Alabama.
There's your offensive tackle.
Yep.
That's your offensive tackle. Let me see. I'm gonna have to find something.
Atlanta's next.
Yes, now it's going to be very, very interesting to see where McCarthy is going to go now. He could just fall all the way, and then Minnesota's got that 23rd or the 11th and the 23rd. Well, Minnesota becomes probably one of the most dangerous teams in the NFL. I mean, well, in the NFC North.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to, since you said you were gonna get something to eat. Boy, Pat McAfee is bullshitting. Yeah, it's been in for a while, Pat. So, yeah, I guess if you want to go ahead and get something to eat.
Yeah, I'll definitely be back on. I'll message you when I come back.
I'm gonna have to find somebody that's a little bit quicker on the fucking draft than Pat McAfee, I think. But yeah, so far, kind of been a little bit weird.
Yeah.
I guess I'll go look up Chat Sports. And we'll search. Yeah, it's like Pat McAfee was kind of like light years behind. They were over there talking about they were talking to Washington, but I'll go ahead and watch it here on Chat Sports and see what they have going on, and I should be able to keep up pretty good. And then I'll just do my own little thing while you're getting something to eat.
Well, yeah. Just signed Kirk to a 4-year deal. Look, I'll be honest.
So far the draft has been underwhelming. Well, it hasn't been really underwhelming. It's been very interesting, but
Listen, I like Michael Penix Jr. I think this is a bad thing.
so Atlanta picks Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington. And so I know that I'm hearing the Cowboys fans that I'm watching right now, they're crapping on this. But to be honest with you, Michael Penix Jr. is a pretty solid quarterback. I'm not going to lie. Played in a pro-style Washington offense. Washington has been known to produce some pretty good quality quarterbacks. That being said, I'm okay with it just because he's going to be playing behind Kirk Cousins for the first year. So you don't really got to start Michael Penix Jr. This guy's going to be your future uh, while you're rebuilding right now. I think it's an okay pick. Of course, I do think that if Minnesota is just now at this point, we're just waiting to see where JJ McCarthy goes. It's going to be interesting if Bo Nix ends up getting picked before JJ McCarthy. Like I said, I still think that JJ McCarthy, but like we know that he's going to get picked for a solid team right now. JJ McCarthy is. So I'm not really worried about it. I am kind of interested in seeing how this draft is going to now play out because you've got Minnesota at number 11 and number 23. So we know that Minnesota is high on JJ McCarthy. But is this going to be where he goes? It looks like it more and more. But I don't really hate the Atlanta pick. I give it about a, I'll give it a C. I'll give it a B minus. I'll give it a B minus because they're looking towards the future. And in Atlanta, you already got Bijan Robinson, you got Drake London, you've got Kyle Pitts. You've got some pieces there that really are going to be developing with Michael Penix still a little bit for the next few years. And I don't, like I said, I think that he's going to be a solid quarterback. He was probably right behind Bo Nix. So I had J.J. McCarthy, Jaden Daniels. Michael Penix Jr. was my number 4 quarterback. I kind of would have probably preferred to trade back and get Michael Penix rather than pick him at number 9. Just because now Chicago's on the clock, and we know that Chicago has their quarterback of the future. Chicago's probably going to get Roma Duze. This is probably a no-brainer. This is what Chicago's going to end up picking, the next best wide receiver, the number 3 wide receiver in the draft to go along with they need a solid, fast wide receiver, really. Xavier Worthy would probably be better for a quarterback like Caleb Williams, but they're going to get Roma Duze here. And yeah, so now you're looking at number 10, which, to be honest with you, I didn't do much research on this draft. I'm not exactly sure who's at number 10 right now. But it looks like J.J. McCarthy is going to fall to Minnesota, and Minnesota is going to be able to not only land J.J. McCarthy, but add another talented piece to go ahead. And looks like Minnesota is going to be that team that's going to develop super quick to be Super Bowl contenders next year. Could we be seeing Houston Texans, Minnesota Vikings Super Bowl next year? It is going to be the question. Because with that offense and the way that Minnesota's already set up with those wide receivers, that offensive line is pretty solid. They're probably going to want to end up picking up another pass rusher. Maybe they get Byron Murphy. I haven't seen a lot go on with these pass rushers. You still got Dallas Turner out there. You still got Latu out there. You still got a lot of good players out there. Being how this draft has went with now Michael Penix is the 4th quarterback taken so far in the first 10 rounds, or in the first 10 picks. And it looks like J.J. McCarthy will probably end up landing at number 11. I'd be surprised if he went at number 10. But yeah, we're just right now, after you've got Chicago, and then you got to get past the Jets. What are the Jets going to do? I suspect that the Jets will probably take Brock Bowers if Chicago selects Roma Duze. I think that the Jets should take Brock Bowers for all extensive purposes. I just don't know. Like I said, some of these teams out there, it's I think that the Washington Redskins ended up really throwing a monkey wrench in this year's draft. So, like, the fucking second pick overall, when they took Jaden Daniels, it was like, okay, well, You kind of hope New England gets him because he was the second best wide receiver to me personally, with J.J. McCarthy being the best wide receiver. I mean, he was the best quarterback with J.J. McCarthy being the best quarterback still on the board. It definitely makes you think, if, then who does Denver get? Where's Denver at right now? Okay, so it looks like Chicago is on the clock. The pick still hasn't come in yet, at least on what I'm watching it on. Now, if Big Kev was here, his feed was a little bit quicker than mine, but I'm watching it on Chat Sports, and he was watching it on CBS. So Downey's ranking. Okay, so Chicago did pick Rome Dunze. It was kind of like a foregone conclusion after they got Caleb Williams. They're going to have to get, and mind you, that Chicago did pick up some wide receiver help this year, but that's been like Chicago's Achilles heel, is they pretty much just did nothing but put trash around Justin Fields. So now you're getting Caleb Williams. Justin Fields will probably end up being, end up progressing and being able to be mentored properly in Pittsburgh. So, like I said, he could be the quarterback of the future for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So now you have Chicago rebuilding their team with these first two picks, and it's going to be interesting to see how Rome Dunze. Caleb Williams is not Michael Penix Jr. by any stretch of the imagination, even though they both played in the same conference. I think that I liked Michael Penix. I liked Michael Penix Jr.'s accuracy and the way he was able to, really, especially in the red zone. I liked him really in the red zone. I think that's why Atlanta took him. I think they see what a lot of people see, is that he's a really good red zone quarterback. If he gets inside the 20, he's going to score a touchdown. He's really dangerous. But so is J.J. McCarthy. So, I don't see that with Caleb Williams. I don't see that Caleb Williams is that type of quarterback. He's kind of reminds me a lot of Dak Prescott. He reminds me a lot of Justin Fields, and he reminds me a lot of Kyler Murray. So yeah, this is gonna be very interesting now because man, you got the New York Jets up right now, and if my prediction is right, they should be taking Brock Bowers. Because they have Aaron Rodgers still. You want to give Aaron Rodgers that good, strong tight end. That makes a lot of sense. You got Garrett Wilson, so you've got the wide receivers. There's no need to get like a Brian Thomas or anybody like that. You'd be reaching at this point in time. Just, picking wide receivers for the sake of picking wide receivers is just as weird as teams picking quarterbacks for the sake of picking quarterbacks, which I feel is exactly what Chicago and New England has done so far in this draft. So now, if we're going to be at New York, trade alert. So Minnesota just switched with the New York Jets. So the New York Jets will probably trade back. Are they just swapping picks? That's what it looks like. It looks like they're swapping picks. I don't know what New York is getting out of this trade. I wouldn't think that Minnesota is going to give up the 23rd pick just to switch up one spot, especially with a team that probably had no interest in getting J.J. McCarthy. This makes sense with Tennessee. It made sense with San Diego. Now you're just switching up to get one pick higher to get J.J. McCarthy in the 10th round. That makes really no sense. No logical sense. It's not going to be rational unless you were afraid that Denver was going to trade ahead of you to land J.J. McCarthy. So the Minnesota Vikings give up the first round pick, receives the 10th overall, sixth round pick, and the New York Jets get their first round pick, which is number 11, a fourth round pick, which is number 129, and a fifth round pick, which is number 157. So essentially, uh, the Minnesota Vikings will not have a second round pick. They won't have a fourth round pick. So, you know, they'll have two first round picks though still. So more than likely they're going to land JJ McCarthy. I still think that other teams, which I guess that just made the most sense. It makes sense for the Vikings because now you get your franchise quarterback. You could probably potentially end up landing one of these pass rushers since you just got lost. Um, Daniil Hunter. Now you get another pass rusher to put on that defensive front to go ahead and accumulate more sacks. Latu makes sense. And so the Minnesota Vikings select J.J. McCarthy. And like I said, by far, this is probably the best quarterback in this draft. As far as Downey's rankings go, he's number 4. He was number 1 for me, with Jaden Daniels being number 2, Bo Nix being number 3, Michael Penix being number 4, Drake May being number 5, and Caleb Williams being number 6. As far as in reality, uh, uh, he's got the arm to go ahead and make all the throws. I know that a lot of people say, well, he can't make throws to the sideline. He didn't have to make throws to the sideline. That's not the way the offense was set up. But he could make the throws whenever he was called to make the throws. He was able to make the throws. Plus, he could buy time with his feet. He can buy time with his feet. He can, he's good at processing plays. Um, he gets the ball downfield, and there's, no doubt that this kid is a proven winner. Beating Ohio State, every year since he's been there, and making Michigan relevant again. Really, at the end of the day, he's made Michigan a powerhouse again, which Michigan wasn't a powerhouse ever since the 90s. They were kind of like what Miami is right now in college football. So I really like this J.J. McCarthy kid. I think that he has a bright future in the NFL. I think that no doubt Michigan or Minnesota has stolen this draft. I think so far I give them a solid A for this pick. And, it's going to be interesting. And the great thing is that Minnesota didn't have to give up that 23rd overall pick since he ended up falling back this far, since you had, New England taking that bait from ESPN and picking up Drake May. That's all Minnesota needed to see. San Diego would have not liked to trade it up with Denver. It looks like everybody stays kind of put for most of the trade partners. So it looks like so far it looks like Minnesota is winning this draft. It's going to be interesting. I'll have to wait and see what they do at number 23 to see exactly how far really what they do with that pick. That'll really tell me a lot more to what they're going to do for the future of this team. But now, to me personally, it looks like the NFC North is the division to beat this season. You've got the Detroit Lions, and the Detroit Lions are going to be strong. The Green Bay Packers are going to be strong. And with J.J. McCarthy at the helm, I think that the Minnesota Vikings will improve this year and maybe even make a wild card. You could have 3 NFC East teams making the playoffs this year. And it's probably one of the best fits for J.J. McCarthy. I was just kind of hoping he would go to one of my teams, mainly the New England Patriots. I knew he wasn't going to make, but y'all were starting to make me wonder, is he going to fall all the way to the Cowboys? If he's down there in Dallas, then, We're going to take him, Jerry. I'm going to call you up right now and tell you that we're going to take J.J. McCarthy if he makes it all the way down to Dallas. So that's an interesting. So that means that more than likely, the New York Jets. By the time I go back in here and look, because I'm doing a couple of things at once, it looks. I would suspect that the New York Jets are probably going to go ahead, take J.J. McCarthy with that next with the 11th pick overall, and that's going to be a great fit for Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson. So I don't know how well the Jets are going to do, but they don't have to play the Cowboys this year. So Aaron Rodgers, you'll be okay with the Jets, unless something happens and Michael Parsons ends up in the NFC East, and then you're screwed. But so far, this has kind of been a very, very interesting draft, and with these elite players in every round, some of these players falling, I think that I think that it's you're going to be able to get day one starting talent in the third or fourth round, and like I said, that's if Trevondre Sweat goes in the third or fourth round. If Trevondre Sweat falls into the later rounds, then you may get a day one starting talent, in the fifth or sixth. It's crazy. And I know that there's going to be some offensive linemen that could definitely make a starting position in the fifth or sixth round for sure in this draft, just because. I know that, because this draft is so top heavy with quarterbacks and wide receivers, you're going to find some safety help and some secondary help that are going to be first round caliber talents, probably end up making it into the third or fourth round as well. Plus, not to mention that, if you need a running back as well, you're probably going to be able to pick one of those up in the second or third round. That's why I was telling Big Kev, I don't know if I'll reach for Jonathan Brooks, which is my favorite running back in this draft, until the second, and possibly, just depending on the way this draft plans out, the third round. Go back in there and look and see exactly where is. Okay, it looks like they still got Minnesota's pick. They're probably pretty happy that J.J. McCarthy is finally off the clock now. And like I said, definitely the best quarterback in this draft class, bar none. I would have taken him over Caleb Williams. I would have taken him just like I would have, like I said, whenever C.J. Stroud ended up going to the Texans. I told Stephen Rose, I said, man, the Carolina Panthers did y'all a solid. Y'all should send them, and they still should. Y'all should give them like a free second or third round draft pick for y'all, because they certainly saved y'all from getting Bryce Young. Because I know damn good and well, all you Texans fans were upset that y'all wasn't going to get Bryce Young, and then y'all ended up with C.J. Stroud. So yeah, I think y'all need to thank the Carolina Panthers and give them a free fourth round. Give them a fourth round draft pick. All right, that's all you got to do. And if Carolina asks you to trade up with them, so they can get something for Bryce Young, y'all should have really gave that first round draft pick instead of giving it to Minnesota. Y'all should have given it to Carolina, because y'all owe that to Bryce Young. You know what I'm saying? Y'all owe that to Carolina. But yeah, so far this draft has kind of not went the way that I thought it would. Go back in there. And to be honest with you, I was watching Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee was running his head just like I'm doing right now, waiting for, Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison, Drake May on the clock. The Jets are still on the clock at number 11. I don't know what's taking them so long to make this pick. At least from where I'm watching it at. So I'm having to wait on whoever is live streaming this. Much like I said, I don't really watch a lot of sports anymore, so I don't invest in the sports packages. But I am waiting for the day whenever I will be interested in watching these sports again. When they become, it's kind of like wrestling to me. When wrestling becomes exciting again, I'll have more interest in it. But you get this, you get a lot of talent to me personally that doesn't take the sport seriously. They don't take the fans seriously, and they're that's just how they act. And it's just not interested in me. That sense of entitlement, that sense of self righteousness, like they're better. And there's no like today. There's like really no celebrities because nobody knows how to be a celebrity anymore. Everybody's like, oh, I'm better than you because I'm on a Disney show or something. It's just the way that they act. And so it's good. It's kind of refreshing to see a guy like, CJ Stroud make it. JJ went to Minnesota. Yeah, I know, Big Kev. I'm keeping track of it. Okay. So it looks like number 1, number 2. Okay, so Olu Fashanu is who the New York Jets finally picked, which is a good pick, I guess. I thought that they would go for Brock Bowers. I thought that Brock Bowers definitely looked like an Aaron Rodgers guy. But, it's a solid pick. You get Aaron Rodgers protection for his blind side. And, no doubt since probably the best 2, and that's debatable because it's not like any of these guys that are offensive tackles were just like heads and shoulders outside of Joe Alt, who I do believe that Joe Alt is a lockdown, a solid left tackle. The left tackles that are remaining, there's really not a lot of, there's not a lot between, Fashanu here and Morgan out of Arizona. The offensive tackles are pretty solid in this draft, so, it's a solid pick, but like I said, could you have gotten more? Probably, but like I said there yet again, you're going to get a guy like Amarius Mims, who is similar in a lot of ways to Joe Alt. He's just not as refined. But the ability to be a Joe Alt is still there for Amarius Mims. And where does Amarius Mims go? Does Minnesota get Amarius Mims? Because then you've got the line stacked for now, J.J. McCarthy with them badass wide receivers. And then let's say you go ahead and, finagle your way back up to go ahead and trade back up in the second round and land or you get Trevonde Sweat in the third round to go ahead and replace Danielle Hunter. Well, just like that, Minnesota's, competitive again. And it's going to be interesting to see how good McCarthy really does. I may be exaggerating a lot of his talents, but I don't think that I am. I think that J.J. McCarthy was this year's C.J. Stroud. I stand by my pick of that being exactly where J.J. McCarthy went. I think that he's going to be one of those guys that's going to play in the same. He's going to play in the same. Now, here's the deal. You've got J.J. McCarthy playing in the same division as Caleb Williams. So if J.J. McCarthy ends up coming out looking really, really solid, and Caleb Williams is not as, the Chicago offense does what Chicago's offense does and starts to sputter, well, then now you're going to have Caleb Williams lose, especially at the beginning of the year. Caleb Williams is going to lose confidence in himself. He's going to end up being the first quarterback taken in this draft, and not only does he have to compete with all his other peers, J.J. McCarthy was taken 10th overall and is in the same division, and if he gets beat twice a year by J.J. McCarthy, the fifth quarterback taken in this fourth, was it the fourth or fifth? Yeah, he's the fifth quarterback taken in this draft. You're going to have to sit there and everybody's going to be like, hey, well, that's what Chicago does. That's what they're going to sit there and say. And, yeah, it's going to really make this organization look bad. But they did get Roma Duzier So maybe, just maybe, Caleb Williams won't be that bad. At least they are finally putting some stuff around a quarterback, which is not normal for Chicago to give their quarterback any kind of real help, particularly on the offensive line. So it is what it is. Um, so now you have the Denver Broncos on the board, and do they go Bo Nix? Yep, they go Bo Nix, is what it looks like. And so now it looks like the Denver Broncos have added another quarterback, and an already confusing. They'll probably end up running with Zach Wilson, I would think, and have Bo Nix back up Zach Wilson um, this year, just for him to go ahead and progress. Now, like I said, Bo Nix was my fourth rated quarterback in this draft, behind McCarthy, Daniels. Well, actually, he was my third. He was my third ranked quarterback in this draft. I think he kind of has that potential to be an Alex Smith, but he does need to be developed a little bit more. Like I said, Justin Herbert is the same product as Bo Nix. So we'll see exactly how this will turn out. Now it looks like Denver has their quarterback. Atlanta has their quarterback for the future. Minnesota has landed their quarterback. The New York Giants end up taking Malik Neighbors. They ended up taking a solid wide receiver. That's going to be an interesting division. I do think that Dallas will take the fall. They haven't improved. And in fact, listening to Big Kev, if they get rid of one of their centerpieces and Micah Parsons, they could be taking a big, huge step back. I don't think that by any means stretch of the imagination, I don't think that Dak Prescott's going to be coming into this year and, being able to maintain. Because like I said, that offense is going to be, well, we've seen that Green Bay figured that offense out pretty well. And so I don't see Dallas having a lot of success, especially going away from a defensive-minded coach like Dan Quinn. So, yeah, it's Bo Nix to the Denver Broncos. I kind of figured that would be the pick that Denver would make. And of course, like I said, it makes a lot of sense. Fills a need, particularly for the Denver Broncos. But I don't know if you're going to start Bo Nix day one. I don't know if Bo Nix is a day one starter, but we'll see. Now you got the Raiders on the clock, and do the Raiders go for Byron Jones out of Texas? If they get Byron Jones, that defense is going to be absolutely scary. Maybe they go Dallas Turner. You also got Quentin Mitchell still on the board. Downey's best available. They got Johnny Newton over Byron Jones. This is why I don't watch a lot of Chat Sports, by the way. You don't even have Leo Latu on there. which I think is probably actually going to be better than Dallas Turner. But, we know that the chat sports act more as a used car salesman. To be real, Tom Downey probably has the worst football analysis that I've seen on the internet, to be honest with you. Do the Raiders go Brock Bowers? I know the Raiders were hoping Michael Penix Jr. would fall here, for their style of play, but so it looks like the Raiders win Brock Bowers. I don't think that these YouTubers that pretend to be NFL fans, I don't think that they really watch any of these games. I think they just look at draft boards and shit, and then look at statistics, because that seems to be what they do. I'm not sure who's under center for the Raiders right now, but they got a hell of a tight end. So the New Orleans Saints are on the clock. And who are the New Orleans Saints going to pick up in the first round? Because you still got plenty of talent out there. Are they going to pick up defense? Do they still even have Davenport? I'm not sure. But you still got Byron Murphy. You still got Johnny Newton out there. But I think that Byron Murphy is better than Johnny Newton. He's better against the run. I actually like Darius Robinson better than Johnny Newton, but it's one of the great things about having so much unexperienced draft experts on YouTube making draft picks. It's because you can land steals in the draft anymore. Absolute steals. Because the mock draft experts today, they don't watch football, they watch analytics, and that's the problem. So now, while we're waiting for New Orleans to make their pick, So it looks like their needs. Okay, so of course, it looks like Quentin Mitchell will probably be the pick for the New Orleans Saints. Certainly not going to go wide receiver with this pick. Certainly not going to go with what's that linebacker? I can't tell what the hell that is that they have up here on the screen. You're not going to go guard right now because you're going to be able to get a guard. And like I said, the way that the quarterbacks and wide receivers are flying off the board, you know, cornerback seems to be the best one. Go ahead and get Quentin Mitchell, the best cornerback in this draft so far. Sorry about that. I kind of fell out. So, yeah, it's interesting to see exactly where it's going to be. Like I said, I'm pretty sure it's going to be Quentin Mitchell. I've been pretty good so far, spot on. It's kind of like we know what these teams need, but we don't know where, which player that they just fall in love with, So this means that you're going to get defensive tackles and defensive ends fall. So this is why people sit there and look at Cesario like the smartest person in the room for the Houston Texans. What's his needs? They're safety, defensive tackle. I don't even want to say wide receiver because you just got Stephon Diggs. Your cornerbacks are pretty solid with C.J. Henderson and Jeff Okudah, and I don't care what anybody says. Jeff Okudah and C.J. Henderson are better cornerbacks than Tavon Diggs. But what made Tavon Diggs look like a world-beating cornerback is that defensive pass rush, which they have going on in Houston right now. So, you don't need a Deion Sanders if you have, Reggie White on one end and Bruce Smith on the other end. So who do we got going to the New Orleans Saints? It looks like the pick is in. It looks like the Indianapolis Colts are, and I can guarantee you that one of these defensive tackles is probably going to go to Indianapolis. Indianapolis needs to work on that side of the ball. They may go wide receiver. They may go Brian Thomas Jr. However, defense wins championships, so you really need to work on that side of the ball. Holy shit. Quentin Mitchell is still on the board, so the best cornerback in this draft class is still on the board. It looks like nobody is picking, looking at any kind of defense right now. As the New Orleans Saints pick Talis Fuaga, it's the offensive tackle for Oregon State. A good pick, but I think that this is kind of a botch. I give this pick a C, and that's not because of the talent level Fuaga is going to be a really, really solid offensive tackle. And that being said, I think that as far as like value goes, the offensive tackles to me are not that far apart this year. It's like, but you're going to get a serious drop off at cornerback once Quentin Mitchell is gone. And I don't think that the Indianapolis Colts are going to take Quentin Mitchell as well. We'll have to see their needs whenever they come up, but I'm not exactly sure what their needs are. But now teams are taking longer and longer, so the draft is going to draw out. Given how now all these players are so close, all these players right now are really, really close, and you still got Amarius Mims on the board. You still got Graham Barton on the board, which I'm hoping that the Cowboys are considering. And this is why I wouldn't go for a running back, because the next up is probably going to be the defensive. The next run is probably going to be defensive end or defensive tackle or something. I still think Dallas Turner is on the board, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think anybody's taking Dallas Turner. So nobody likes these ends and nobody likes these tackles. So it's for teams that are, getting these quarterbacks, these first-year quarterbacks like New England, like Chicago, that are going to look for offensive linemen, they're making a run on these offensive linemen. So the offensive linemen, which should have been available in the second round, some of these guys, are probably not going to be as available in the second round. Which good thing for New England is, and well, I guess for the guys, is they'll have early second round picks, but is there going to be any offensive line left? I'm thinking that I think Indianapolis is going to go defensive tackle here. I'm pretty sure that Jacksonville will go wide receiver. Seattle may go offensive tackle. I don't know. I know they don't need any secondary players, so Indianapolis may go Quentin Mitchell. They may see him as the best prospect on their draft board, and they just may pick the best player available. Joe Alt, Lake Neighbors, J.C. Latham, Michael Penix Jr. Yeah, they haven't really. Has there been any defensive players taken at all so far? I don't believe so. I believe every player is an offensive player. Yeah, with first pick was Caleb Williams. You had Jaden Daniels. You had Drake May. You had Marvin Harrison Jr., Joe Alt. Yeah, there hasn't been one defensive player pick taken so far. Not one defensive player at all. So that means that none of these NFL teams are respecting any of the defense at all in this draft. And you still got Quentin Mitchell. Yeah, none whatsoever. All the best defensive players at number 15 are still available. If you need defense, which is what Texans is looking at right now, maybe offensive linemen. But other than that, if you need defense right now, which I think that the Texans are okay at offensive linemen, to be honest with you. You got Dallas Turner. You got Quentin Mitchell. You've got Johnny Newton still on the board. You got Byron Murphy II still on the board. I actually have Byron Murphy over, unlike fucking Downey's report here. You still have Jared Verse there. So you still have so much defensive talent left on this draft board here. I'll be honest with you, I don't see how people can watch these YouTube channels anymore. But at least there's not any commercials on these live streams. Of course, if I do generally see a advertisement, which I'm seeing an advertisement right now, but it's an in-show advertisement. It really makes me really want to cut the videos off, to be honest with you. And I know I ain't got any viewers or whatnot. I don't hang around the same social circles. Most of my social circles are gone. I don't really have a lot to do here. I'm just kind of here putting up stuff for posterity purposes for people to come back to later on and say, hey, you know what? Paulston was right. J.J. McCarthy should have been the first pick overall. But, you know, kind of like C.J. Stroud, kind of like a lot of these other players that I do these mocks on, and they end up being successful, even if they're not successful with the teams that draft them, they end up going on to be successful on other teams. So, yeah, right now they're trying to sell me some deodorant. Okay, can we get back to the draft though? What's Indianapolis doing right now? Is Indianapolis going to break the trend and be the first team to draft a defensive player? That's what I want to know. They got Richardson last year. Okay, so who did Tennessee get? Now you got Seattle on there. Stop trying to sell me deodorant. So that's the first defensive player that they've taken. The first defensive player taken, La'el Latu. Now, I do like La'el Latu. He's going to be, yeah. It's going to be a pretty solid pickup for the Indianapolis Colts here as they pick La'el Latu out of UCLA. Now, the Colts are definitely setting up that defense. There yet again, you got to play C.J. Stroud twice a year. They've probably got, it's going to be hard to determine exactly how good Anthony Richardson really is. We didn't get to see a lot, so it's going to be between the Colts and the Texans. And like I said, very well, the Tennessee Titans, I think they should have traded back, accumulated more draft capital, gotten a Byron Murphy or something like that to help with their defense. But yeah, I thought that they're ranking, and like I said, the Tennessee Titans certainly aren't out of the NFC South. I'm pretty sure that the Jacksonville Jaguars are. I think that eventually they're going to have to figure out, they're going to have to move on from Trevor Lawrence at some point in time. Trevor Lawrence will probably be a stud for the next team he goes to, though. That seems to be what it happens, because out of the Jacksonville Jaguars is just one of those organizations. It's just a horrible organization. And with that being said, I think that Trevor Lawrence was highly overrated coming out of that draft that he had going on. So, anyways, I think I'm going to go ahead and cut this video off. It's been going on for almost 3 hours now. I'm just going to sit back and watch the draft. Just went ahead and decided that since this is draft day, I wanted to go ahead and get some content up. Probably go ahead and watch somebody else's draft stream, because, I'm not a big fan of chat sports, and since Big Kev went ahead and dropped on out, I guess I'll go ahead and wrap this video up. But tell me who your teams need. Really, where do you think that your team should go? You people like, sub, do the shit the internet tells me to get over. And for now, I'm out.